What is going on, guys? Tails86 here with Weekly Review, and today we're going to be showing off the review of a console that really and truly needs no introduction. It is one of the greatest systems that Nintendo ever put out. Forget the Wii, forget the GameCube, forget the N64. We're talking about the Super Nintendo, baby. This is one of the greatest systems that Nintendo ever made, and I'm going to tell you all why it is the greatest and still is the greatest compared to any other game system that Nintendo has ever made. The Super Nintendo was the second system that was ever released in America from Nintendo. After they went ahead and messed with a bunch of trials and errors with the original NES and finally decided to combat against the Mega Drive that Sega had, they went ahead and came out with amazing games, amazing third-party and first-party games that would revolutionize the system, even more revolutionizing the market and bringing Nintendo to the very top, sending Sega's Mega Drive crashing to its knees. Super Nintendo was in a league of its own, with a brand new controller and brand new control schemes for different games, giving you even more feel than you originally had in the NES, with a better D-pad, start and select buttons that were now moved in a much comfortable way, 4 buttons instead of just the regular A and B's, and then 2 L and R triggers on top. Now, of course, we also had the American version as well. Here's basically a look at how the difference is between a Super Nintendo controller and a Super Famicom controller is. Not really much of a difference, as you can see. But in feel, the Super Famicom had a little bit better of a feel than the Super Nintendo's American controller did. Also, it just looked cooler. Epic! Now, as I said before, Super Nintendo had some amazing games. Some that would only come to the Super Nintendo in America, and then some only that would stay in Japan. A few of those games would be Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World, Earthbound, Star Fox, and many, many others. Now, if you were able to get your hands on a Super Famicom game, you would see actually a big difference in the way that the games were made. Here is a showing of the Super Famicom games from Japan, which is this one, Party Star, which I'm pretty sure some of y'all remember from my unboxing for my first Super Famicom game. And then here is an American cartridge. So as you can see, pretty good size difference. Super Famicom games were a little bit fatter, and they also did not have this weird back like how Super Nintendo games do. Now, if you were lucky to own a Super Nintendo, you could also be able to make it so it was backward compatible with Super Famicom games. One of those ways is seeing this right here. You had 2 tabs on your Super Nintendo. One right here, and then one right there. All you had to do was to get rid of those tabs, and you would be able to play Super Famicom games on your Super Nintendo.
Good luck.
Star Fox was one of those types of games that was very revolutionary because they took polygon graphics that would be regularly based on N64 type graphics while using the Super Effects chip that was implanted into each Super Nintendo that gave it the chance to be able to achieve these kinds of results. So you had no auto lock-on feature like how you have on Star Fox 64 and all the other Star Fox games. Plus you can understand what they were actually saying pretty easily. But this game was far from easy. Probably one of the hardest games that I ever had to play. I remember I used to go to a Sears actually a few times and played this, and I could never get past the first few levels because it was just that hard. And even to this day, it's a hard game. And most people say that the game hasn't aged well. The game, I think, still plays fine. It just has some very hard difficulty. Which just goes to show, just because the game doesn't always look good still, doesn't mean that's a bad game. Then we finally got a new Zelda game for the Super Nintendo. After 4 years in the making, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now, while Link to the Past is not my absolute favorite Zelda game of the whole entire series, it's a great game, and it deserves to be played by even the most novice of Zelda fans. Even though it does have some difficulty to it. It's not the hardest Zelda game ever made, but it is a fun one. Especially when you receive an item and you always hear that wonderful chime. Another of the most famous Super Nintendo games was when Super Mario World came onto the scene, including new power-ups, brand new enemies, and the inclusion of one of the greatest characters that Nintendo ever created, Yoshi. I also used to hate those football players, the Chucks. I used to hate them. I used to really hate them. But they increased the sound even more on the game. Gave you some extra mini games, like being able to get these 1-ups right here, and lining up 3 O's. And as well as being able to get stars, just like before, and getting as many 1-ups as possible. And of course being able to fly, just like before, in Super Mario Bros. 3 with the Tanuki suit. But guys, I could seriously go on for hours and hours and hours if I had to, and this video would probably end up being like 20 hours long if I had to talk about the whole entire history of Nintendo, for the Super Nintendo at least. But I'm not going to do that, because I'm pretty sure more than half of y'all that are my subscribers, or soon to be my subscribers if possible, know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the Super Nintendo is, and always will be, the greatest Nintendo system that Nintendo ever created. Without a doubt. And that's why I'm not even going to give a rating for this game system, because it doesn't need a rating. It's just awesome. It's awesome, comparable. You cannot describe how the Super Nintendo is until you've actually played one. Forget playing it on the Virtual Console. Forget playing any of these games on the Virtual Console. It's nothing more satisfying than having the actual controller of a Super Nintendo in your hand and being able to play the original version. Forget the downloadable versions, forget all that. Play the real version, and you'll understand what I mean on why the cartridge versions are much better than downloading. Yes, they are more expensive, I understand. But, believe me, if you're an old gamer like I am, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that if you own still a Super Nintendo, hold on to it with every essence of your life, because they'll never make another system like it. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Tales A6. Take care. Later.